Hello, all you great and wonderful students. I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about what you guys think of as grading, but what I think of as responding to writing. Um, you may notice here on my simple little graphic that I made, I've got responding to writing here, and then I've got creating content. This little picture here, this is the idea of what I call hard copy writing, the old kind of writing we used to do with pencil, pen, and paper. So much of what we think about writing is driven by, what we did when, well, I guess I should say what I did. Some of you guys may not have done much of that, depending on how old you are. But, for so long in our history, we did writing this way. So a lot of what we think about writing is shaped by those experiences and those beliefs that were created. But I've got down here creating content because when you think about most of the writing we do nowadays is either done in a digital format, it's delivered in a digital format, or even if it's in a traditional hard copy format, we view it and we read it and we use it in a digital context. So writing is one of those words that really doesn't even fit so much what we actually do nowadays when we, put words together and, try to put together some kind of a text or document. What you call those things nowadays is even changing. But it's really more about creating content and not even creative. I don't mean like creative writing. I mean, you do have to be creative in that you have to think about how to put things together. But really it means, there's lots of content out there. I mean, you think about it, just nearly everything anybody can say about anything is there's something about it already on the internet. So a lot of what we do is take that and, we reshape it, reformat it, repurpose it. And we have to think about, excuse me, how is it being delivered and how is the reader, the user, going to use that information? How will they need to access it? What kind of difficulties might they run into accessing it? So anyway, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about that because I think you've probably already figured out that I don't do things like maybe some of your other English or writing courses that you've taken. I really hate when someone says to me, a writer, because I don't think of you guys as students, I think of you as writers. But I hate when a writer says to me, tell me how to fix this. Because writing's not about fixing, and so much of what you may have had happen to you in other writing classes is that you would write something and the teacher would, mark it and say, okay, well, you said this wrong or you did this wrong or those kinds of things. That's really not how real writing occurs. Real writers that are writing for real audiences and real purposes, there's a lot you do before you get to I call that the editing, maybe, when you're going to quote unquote fix things, maybe you've got a wrong word or a comma out of place or something like that. So I want to give you opportunities to engage in a writing process that I think will be helpful and useful to you when you leave this class. It's not about me just saying, oh, you wrote that phrase wrong or whatever. It's helping you to think about strategies you can use when you are doing writing. And if you notice here, I've got low stakes and high stakes. A lot of people nowadays, when writing classes, they're doing like contracts or things like that, which really aren't new. They're just kind of resurfacing. I saw one teacher had written something about ungrading, and I guess that makes sense on one level, but the way I like to think about it and what seems to make sense to writers when I talk about them is this idea of low stakes and high stakes. It's very big in the education field, but low stakes means you allow people, whatever they're learning, you allow them opportunities to practice and you give full credit for whatever they're doing. Because when someone's first learning a skill, they're not going to be very good at it. And then after you've done a lot of practicing, then you have what you call high stakes. And at that point, the points, like I give you guys points, when you get to high stakes, that's when you pay attention to, the editing. You're getting ready to take some text that you worked on and make it more of a final product. So that's kind of how I grade, because you will see that, most of what you've done nowadays, I haven't given you specific feedback. There's really not a big reason to, because a lot of that's meant for you to practice the skills that we're talking about, take the strategies that we've learned, try to use those. It's not about me looking over your shoulder and, picking on every little bitty question or whatever. And you get to look at others do their writing. And anytime you look at what other people are doing and pay attention to it, you learn from that as well. Now, when we get to, the more final versions of documents, what I call sometimes the bigger, projects, when we take some of what we've done and put it together into, say, a proposal, a recommendation, a report, a chart, whatever. Let me give you an example. If I was teaching you how to play tennis, you guys probably have taken some kind of, teaching where you were learning how to do some kind of sport. Back in my day, they made us all take PE. So when I took tennis, if you showed up and did what the activity was for the day, you got full credit. And, hopefully your skills built, and then you might have a test at the end. Writing's the same way. If I teach you something and then expect you to get out on the tennis court and do it perfectly, when you're playing tennis, that's not how it is. I teach you how to do a backhand. You get out there and practice and you do it really bad for a while. But I give you full credit for doing it. So that's the low stakes, high stakes. But one of the reasons I do want to make this clear to my writers is because it's different from what you're used to in other classes. And so a lot of times what happens between teacher and student in a writing class, an English class, is, the student writes something and the teacher says, what's wrong with it? Well, just because I'm not doing that doesn't mean I don't expect you to look at what you're doing, think about what you're doing. You need to learn how to look at, what you're communicating, and look at how others are doing it, and think about, is that working? Are you using the strategies we've talked about? Are you using them in a way that's helpful to you? Because when you leave this class, that's what you need to know how to do. You need to know, how to put a writing project together, where to go look for sources, how to use those sources. Do you use a template? If you do use a template, how do you use it? What's a good way of doing it? But always thinking about the purpose you're doing it for and who you're doing it for. That's what you need to be thinking about. So I'm wanting you to practice those strategies. But I don't want you to think that just because I haven't gone in there and said, oh, this is wrong, blah, 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 that everything you're doing is perfect. So you need to be monitoring that stuff. And we will get to a point with, projects as they develop, where we will do what I call writing workshop. But I will give you, when we do writing workshop, we'll use these concepts called writer-based and reader-based. And I find that these are always useful for writers too, because writer-based mainly means that when you're writing something, generally in the first stages of writing, you're writing down what makes sense to you. You're putting on paper or on the computer screen or whatever. You're getting it out of your head the way it makes sense to you, but that doesn't mean it makes sense to the reader. So what we'll do is we'll take, the things that you put together in the early stages, the writer-based writing. We will give you strategies, and you'll get to practice those strategies where you'll be thinking about, how do I take what I wrote that makes sense to me but doesn't make sense to the reader? What can I do with that to make it make sense for the reader? And that's a hard, thing to learn. You already know how to do it some. If you expect the teacher to do it all, though, you're not practicing that stuff. And, like I already said, that's the stuff you need to practice and learn how to do and be aware of, because you can take that with you after you leave this class, and you'll have more strategies. You'll be more confident as a writer. You'll have more understanding, and, just be more successful on every level. So anyway, that's just some quick kind of stuff from out of my head that hopefully makes some sense to you, and maybe gives you an explanation of, I am giving you points, giving you credit on the, smaller practice things, but, we'll move into more of the reviewing and writing workshop and practice those strategies, and your formal finished documents will, they'll earn you more points. So just keep all that in mind. And I hope that you guys got some good info out of that. And I appreciate all the good writing that you guys are doing. Thanks very much.